Hey guys, Patrice here again with another "You're using it wrong" video. This time it's on Valorant, and I'm planning to cover every single character like always. I tried to go back to my roots and play an agent for a lot longer than I did in my last videos, so I ended up playing VIPER for around 2 weeks and I still feel like I don't know enough about her. Either way, I played around 8 hours per day and mostly VIPER, so I still think this video will give you some valuable information on her. By the way, I stream on Twitch almost every day now because of the quarantine, so feel free to hop in and let's work on the future guides together, or maybe just AFK farm keys. I will leave the link in the description, but now without wasting any more of your time, let's get into the video. As always, I will leave all the timestamps in the description so you can move to any part you will want. Starting off with skills. Poison Cloud, aka Poison Orb. I'm sure all of you know the basic of this ability. There's multiple ways of using it. As an attacker, you can shut off specific angles and slow down enemy pushes towards the points. You can reactivate it anytime, so it works very well throughout the entire round. I'm sure you also all know that it can be thrown pretty far, and if you learn specific spots you can even land it from safe area. So for example, on Split you can shut off B Heaven as soon as the round starts. In my personal opinion, you shouldn't waste it like that though. There's better agents for it, such as Brimstone or Omen. On attacking side, I usually save this ability to help me reposition or move further into the map. I often end up using it moving up a little closer and then picking it up to save it for later or another round. This ability is very eco-friendly and you can save a lot of money on using it if you keep picking it up. Most of the times I try my best to save it all the way until we plant, since it's very nice to have it so you can cover up some spots and move around more freely when protecting your plant. Another way I use it is to kill surprised enemies. I don't know about high MMR plays or how it will work after the game will be out for a longer time, but so far it worked amazingly. What you wanna do is actually throw it towards where you think the enemies will be and block off their side. Then move inside of the cloud and pick it up. This will almost immediately disappear the cloud and it will be a lot faster than deactivating it. So enemies that look at the orb or around it will be surprised and caught off guard. After I pick up the orb, I immediately look around the area I've heard of seen enemy before or where I think they will be. It worked very consistently so far, but I don't know how this tactic will work after the game been out for, some time. Another good way to use this ability is to place your ultimate safely on the enemies. For example, let's use Split Map again. As a defender, I usually go B since VIPER can hold B on her own most of the time. As soon as the round starts, I throw the poison orb into the B main and push up towards it. If I don't hear anyone, I will use my first tactic and just remove the poison and try to pick up the backer of their team. But if I hear multiple enemies rushing B, I get into the poison orb towards the edge of it and throw my ult inside the B main safely. That way I slow down the enemy push or completely stop it. Another thing you should know is that the skill performs almost as a grenade, but unlike grenade, as soon as it touches the ground or a straight surface, it will stick to it. Knowing this, there's a lot of ways you could throw it in a really awkward positions for your advantage. For example, on Haven map, there's a lot of door ledges and little wood edges, and all of them count as a straight surface. So if done correctly, you will stick the orb on them. On Seashore, you have a nice advantage as a defender. If you throw your orb on top of this little cycle thing above the arc, you will be able to cover enemy side while still being able to see the enemy feet and shoot them. On their perspective, they won't be able to see anything and in most cases won't even push short just because of that. You can also use the same tactic for a garage and close off the double door as a defender. The main thing I would say is that you generally want it to be above the ground from the opposite side, since if you have high advantage you will be able to see them and they won't. So in garage you want to either stand on the window or near it. It will also work on tunnel from garage to A, since you can either stand on the metal box and see them before they see you, or stand on the ground in general. Since it's a little hill, they will still have harder time spotting you than you will have to spot them. I will also give some examples on Split. As a defender for mid, you can count out 5 blocks from top and 3 blocks from the left. Then you want to stand up and aim a little higher than that little red thing and kind of have your crosshair on that little bush. And you will end up getting it on the ledge. So now you can see their legs coming up from mid, whilst they can't see you if you're anywhere above the 5th step. Also, let's cover some places for bind as well. You can cover toilets from the defending side and attacking side. As a defending, it's pretty crazy and very easy to land. The enemy can't see anything and you can see their legs no matter where you stand, and I picked up a lot of kills this way, and at least the first few rounds when enemies push toilets I would pick up the kills, and for the rest of the game enemy would never push toilets again because they would just know I'm there with a VIPER. you can get on top of this little box on the left side, and if you jump towards the grenade, you can actually pick it up. So this is reusable, you don't have to leave it there, you can pick it up and leave. You can also do it as an attacker if you drop it on the painting up here. But it's not really that useful, and I'd never really use it that much. Only if I see enemies pushing toilets way too often, then I would try to do it to back my team. But other than that, never really used it. Another one is for U-Haul. If you drop the smoke on top of the painting, you can hide either on the corner of the map or even on heaven, and you will see them first once again. This works mostly for an attacking site, for example when you planted and you know that there is somebody pushing short, and you know when an enemy pushes short, there's a high chance of them coming from U-Haul. There's also one on mid, easy to land and you can pick it up from those pipes, but it's not really that good. But I can see being used for attackers if you planted A and someone is flanking from B. These are only a few examples I found on custom games. There's definitely a lot more, and it's probably better if I cover them in a separate video. Please let me know down in the comments below if you want me to cover separately each map with separate videos. Since there's millions of tries I would need to do, also I'm sure there will be a lot of crazy ways in the future, and I'll probably make a separate video on those when the game becomes open for everyone. Basically, all I'm trying to say is that Poison Orb is not Brimstone map smoke, so you should use them in a different way, or try to, since if you're using it just like Brimstone, then you probably should play Brim instead of the Viper and have much easier time landing those smokes. Moving on to the second ability, Toxic Screen. This is also very high skill ability. I think in general, Viper is very high skill character, and the more you play and learn her, the more she will reward you for it. Unlike Ryze for example. But anyway, Toxic Screen is pretty simple. It fires in a straight line to where you aim it, and it will drop the walls under the first projectile. So it's not like they magically drop from the air, as I thought the first few days I played her. It's actually a grenade that drops little walls. I'm saying this because at the first time I played Viper, I thought this can only be used outside areas, but it can also be used inside as long as you throw it in. You can actually receive insane sight blocks with this if used correctly. For example, if you throw it on split towards A as an attacker, you line up your arm with the branch and then aim up the third floor and shoot it. Now it will block the ramp and heaven window as well. Since the projectile is falling down over distance, it lands perfectly under the covers and blocks out the windows side, on top of the ramp, which will make A push much safer and covered from some angles. There's a lot of ways you can use this wall on every map that yet to be discovered, but so far from what I've learned, it's one of the best abilities in the game since of its range. You can block off so many angles and make the push much safer. For example, on Heaven map, you can block off half of the C or half of the A, making it much easier to rush since your team will only need to cover on one side at a time, avoiding getting sandwiched pretty much. You can also use a wall to block off certain angles so your teammate can pick up an ult orb. But usually this is a waste of the skill since you can't really pick it up. You rather use the poison orb to do that and then pick it up after you move on. One way I use this skill is to give myself time to cover each angle when I'm trying to op someone out. So for example, if I'm trying to pick a kill on Heaven C and I'm an attacker, I will position myself to only be open to one angle at a time. Then I will disable the wall, and as soon as the wall goes down, I'm already on pre-aim, ready to shoot if someone is there. After that, I re-enable the wall again and move to another position and do the same thing for all of the angles. Well, the wall is pretty self-explanatory and there's not much I can say. Just like the poison cloud, it can be thrown in most crazy ways to block off specific views, but I haven't personally learned many myself. Also a quick mention, all Viper skills deal damage, but it restores back to full almost instantly as soon as the enemy or teammate gets out of the area of the effect. Now let's move on to Viper's third ability called Snakebite. This is Viper's only ability that actually deals permanent damage, so mostly it's used to flush enemies out or to clear one or two angles before entering a specific place. This ability also requires some skill if you want to land it on someone who is planting or defusing, or specific places where you know the enemy is sitting through the rounds. For example, let's use Heaven again, Long A. Long A is the favorite position where snipers or just in general aggressive players like to peek from the defending side, and usually try to go for an orb or a double peek to get a kill. If you see enemies doing this too often, you can slightly punish them for it by landing a perfect snake bite. For example, if you jump up on the ramp right here and look towards this hook, you want to place yourself somewhere in the middle of the left side. After that, slightly look left towards that little bump right here, and then take one tiny step back and shoot just the way I did here. So that will land right on top of them if they are trying to peek or trying to pick up the orb. So it will deal a little damage and maybe, you know, make them back off or something, just a little punishment. Another example I can give is Heaven's Seaside, also one of the favorite positions for AWP users. There's 3 main spots here, one behind the vault, one behind the metal container, and the third on top of the metal container. Well, you lucky guys, since I have the easiest position to punish those snipers. If you see a sniper taking one of those positions too often, all you want to do is line yourself up with this box's corner and walk all the way back. Then look up to this little string, go up around a centimeter from the end of the string, and shoot. And there you go, you cover the default that will land straight on it. If the sniper likes to be behind the metal box, then you line yourself up exactly the same, but this time you aim just a little below and to the right of that little white cloth corner. And again, you cover the entire metal corner, so no matter where he stands, he most likely will take damage. And last but not least, the metal box, one of the favorites for snipers. Again, do the exact same lineup, but this time aim for this red right corner. Then move straight up all the way till the end of the cloud. And then do a tiny little centimeter up again, or if you see it on my screen, I'm not sure if you can see it, but you know, there's another little cloud that is very see-through, you just have to aim towards it. But if you can't see, just measure approximately like 0.8 millimeters and it will do the trick. Well, of course, you have to practice a little bit in the custom games to just, you know, land those 100% every time. I guess I need to mention that the cloud always stays at the same way, which makes it easier for us. Here we go, that's covers for the C sniper spots. Just like with any other VIPER skills, there's so many ways you could do this that I'm not going to show every single position on every single map. Instead, I will ask you again, if you want me to cover each skill on each map or on a separate video, I will be more than happy to use my time to make those videos. Make sure to comment that down below. For now, you can just go into the custom game yourself and try out any positions you find enemies the most. So if you were lucky enough to play the game, you probably already know which spots most enemies camp in, pretty much on every map. Also, this depends on different MMR. In higher MMR, people will tend to have different spots, so depending on your MMR, you will learn the spots you most find enemies on, and can go on to a custom match and learn how to punish them best. For me, I used Heaven as an example because I always see people peeking long C or long A, and mostly those spots I've shown right now. That's why I went on custom map and actually searched a way to counter those snipers. Same thing I did with split mid. It seems there's enemies always pushing split mid, the right side when you're protecting as a defender. So I got tired of it, I went onto the custom game and I, tried my smoke grenade to line up the best smoke possible for split mid, so I could see them whilst they couldn't see me. And I'm super glad that I found this spot because that spot is just amazing. It saved me by protecting mid so many times. Moving on to the last ability, Viper's Pit. Perfect ability for defenders and attackers, since you can always drop it on top of the spike and make enemies' life a lot harder. But one thing I would like to mention is that enemies pretty much see you in the exact same distance as you see them. The only difference is that they don't get the red filter over you and you get over them, which makes it easier to spot for you. But experienced players will still be able to react fast enough even without the red filter. Ultimate also does same damage as other poison abilities. So it will deal damage all the way until the enemy has 1 health left, but as soon as they come out of the poison, it will return to what it was. So for this ultimate, you want to use a rapid fire weapon, for example Phantom or an SMG. I personally still prefer to use AK over those weapons, so when I have my ultimate ready, I usually buy a shorty as a pistol, just so in case I use my ult, I can switch to shorty if I have to kill rushing enemies. I won't bother talking about obvious spike ults. You probably already know that as a defender you can throw it on top of the spike and protect it, and as an attacker you can plant and then throw ult over the plant. Let's rather cover the points people don't tend to benefit from. One thing I would like to mention if you're playing as an attacker is to actually try your best to place a spike in a corner if the map allows it, and throw your ultimate further away so that corner would be barely walled off by your ultimate. So instead of having the spike inside of your ult, you have it right on the corner, just barely outside the ultimate. This way it will be harder for defenders to find the spike, and if they try to defuse it, it will cut out their view completely, making them an easier kill. Also use such corners to hide yourself in as well. You can just barely move out of your ultimate and be in a corner, which will ensure that the enemies can't see you even if they do push your ultimate, and you can keep re-entering to pick up kills and replenish fuel. Damn it, I'm using also way too much. Alright, let's look up synonyms for also. In addition, I'd like to mention that you need to come out of the ultimate most of the time, since people always expect you to be inside your ultimate, so you can often catch them off guard. I often see people shoot inside my ult and start reloading, thinking that they are in a safe place. I guess it's something to do like subconsciously, that people seeing a green wall thinking they're safe, but instead I peek them as soon as they start reloading and kill them outside of my ultimate. If I hear an enemy running outside, I will do the same, since most of the times the enemy is facing towards the ultimate and not looking around it, which makes my kill even easier. Also, try to be open-minded and don't just use the ultimate on the spike, since when I started playing I would find myself being in tunnel vision and only using the ultimate over the spike. A lot of the times I wouldn't use my ultimate for like 4 or 5 rounds and it would just be a waste of the ult. So don't always wait for a perfect moment. You should try to use your ultimate as soon as it's available. Obviously not to waste it, but don't try to oversave it either, since the quicker you use, the quicker you start working towards the next ultimate. Let's imagine that we are a defender, for example, and we are protecting mid on split. Well, if you hear a lot of steps and enemies are trying to push mid hard, you immediately use the ultimate and cover the vents entrance and the B heaven too. By doing this, in 5 out of 10 times, enemies will just back out, which will let your team to reposition and waste the enemy's time. Think of it this way, if enemies would have killed you, then they would have the control over the vent and B heaven, which will make them unpredictable and hard to fight against, since those positions are very strong. And you would waste another round without using your ultimate. You can also do the same for point A or B. If you hear multiple steps pushing towards you, you can ult it off and slow the enemy push. 5 out of 10 times enemies will back out and go for another point. 3 out of 10 times they will try to push and trade you. And 2 out of 10 times they will try to push you, but you will end up killing them and trading 1 for free or something around that number. Last point I would like to make is that you can technically take the big risk, big reward tactic. Tell your teammates to all cover 1 out of 2 points while you go to the other point and ult it off as soon as the round starts. There's 50% chance that the enemy team will go for another point. If they are smart, they probably will predict that you are on your own and just rush and trade you. If you get more than 1 kill, then your team will still be in a slight advantage, but this tactic is hard to pull off successfully and it only worked for me few times. There's also a lot of abilities that can push you out of your ult, such as Rise Bot or Grenade or even Ultimate. Also, Brimstone ult is a hard counter, so you have to check what enemies you're fighting against and what their ult status is. In addition, I forgot to mention that you can be the flank defense for your attacking team. If they are all rushing a certain point, you can ult off the flanks and keep them safe in most cases. After your team takes the point, you can leave the ult and take a better position on the point. But you should only waste your ultimate like this if you are getting hard flanked by the enemies all the time, as an attacker. Okay, moving on to number 2, counter picks and team composition. Starting off with Cypher. He's a very good teammate since he can place traps around your ultimate, making it easier for you to pull off the ultimate tactic since he can put the traps before the round starts and then move on back to whichever point they're covering, so you'll have more protection when you ult off a specific point. Also, his cameras will help you to see outside of your ultimate. There's also a tactic you can do with a Cypher if you play in a squad is to place a camera in mid, for example, and also place poison in mid. And whenever Cypher will see someone coming, he will tell you and you can activate the smoke, after which Cypher can shoot the dart to scare the enemies off. That way you can cover a position without even being there at all. As a counter, Cypher does bring some trouble to Viper. His walls will give away your position if you walk through them, but won't give away his, so he can quietly push in your ultimate under 2 walls. Or throw them generally to block off the certain areas and then spray up the areas left open, which will give him a higher chance of getting the kill from outside the smoke. He can also throw his camera inside of the ultimate if the ultimate is hugging a wall, which will help him see you or mark you without going inside himself. Moving on to Jet. Well, she doesn't really bring any specific values to you, and as a counter she does have escapes, but that counts towards everyone, so nothing special here. Moving on. Phoenix. As a teammate, he can use your walls and orbs for his attacks to help himself around them and flash the enemies on the other side, but other than that, there's nothing to mention. As a counter, he can throw flashes inside your ultimate, and he can also wall off and molotov certain areas to minimize the guesses of where you will be. He can push you under his ultimate for the safe push. Next one is Rise. pretty strong counter towards your skills and specifically your ultimate. Her boom bot will go towards you in your ultimate and you will only be able to see it last second, whilst the bot will see you perfectly through the smoke. And even if you end up destroying it, all Ryze has to do is shoot towards the direction of the boom bot is going, and most of the times ending up killing you. So basically, as soon as you hear the bot, you have to hide. On top of that, she can attack with her abilities and mainly her ult to push you out or even kill you. So she's pretty big counter. As a teammate, she doesn't really have anything specific to be mentioned. Moving to Sage. As a support in general, she can help a lot, but Sage helps pretty much anyone, so no matter who you play. There's no combos that I can think of right now. As a counter, she can use her slow orbs to slightly slow you down or even know your position. Also, she can wall off parts of your ultimate, so if she knows where you are, she will wall you off and make it a bit less comfortable for you rotating. Next up is Sova. Pretty good teammate since he can give away enemy positions that you couldn't cover with your zone controlling skills, which will make the push a lot easier for your team and you, but there's no specific combos to be used with him, so moving on to countering. He's one of your strongest and scariest counters. He can use his arrow to push you out of specific spots or completely know your location no matter where you hide. Also, he can drone your ultimate and mark you, which he can kill you normally or with his ultimate afterwards. Good Sova almost always ends up winning ability fights with Viper, so be very careful when you're facing a Sova. One way to counter his recon arrow is to use your poison cloud, since even if he throws the recon bolt inside your ultimate, but you will stand inside the cloud, it won't find you. Also, you can come out of your ultimate to not get found as well, since Sova's radar doesn't go through any sort of walls, abilities or in-game walls. Now Viper versus Viper. You both will take damage from each other's skills the same way. Sometimes it gets kinda confusing on which wall or smoke is yours, which can be funny, but in the end, best Viper will win and provide best assistance to the team. Now let's talk about Omen. As a teammate, there's nothing out of ordinary to mention, and as a counter, he doesn't really do much, but he can teleport into your abilities to catch you off guard. On top of that, when you see him ult, if you end up finding his body, you can throw poison orb on top of his body and activate it, after which you can reposition so he won't know where you are. Then you can start spraying up the cloud and kill him, or even remove the cloud completely to see his exact location and catch him off guard. He could get very confused on what's going on. Alright, 2 more left. Let's first cover Breach. If you are staying away from walls, you are safe from most of his skills, but his ultimate will overflow yours and make you an easier kill, so he does kinda counter you. As a teammate, he can assist you with flashes, but it's pretty much the same for everyone, so there's nothing specific to mention here. And lastly, let's talk about Brimstone, also a counter towards you. His ultimate will force you out of yours or even kill you. Furthermore, he can cover areas of your escape with his Molotov. And on top of that, he can actually smoke inside your ult to push in safer, so he does counters you pretty hard. On a team composition side, he's a very good teammate since both of you can block off a lot of enemies' vision, making it much easier and much safer to push certain angles. Also, because of his smokes, you won't be forced using your smoke cloud all the time, which means you will be able to save it for more serious situations. If both of you are on attacking side and you planting and ulted, he will also be a good last resort safe. He can hide himself in a corner of your ultimate walls and wait out until the fight is over, and if you are killed, then he can ult on top of the enemy or the spike to win even more time for the spike. Moving on to the third point of the video, pros and cons. Starting off with pros. Brings a lot of support to the team, strong on attack and defense. Can hold a point on her own pretty damn well. Very strong ultimate that can change the tide of the round and in most cases win it. Most of her skills are throwables, which means you can do some crazy trick shots with them and cover some crazy areas on the whole map. She's pretty fun to main because you learn something new every match and there's a lot to learn. Economical since you can keep picking up her smokes and you only really need to buy one ability. She's a good slow pusher, can rotate and flank pretty safely since of her poison cloud. And now moving on to cons. She's very hard to master. It's much easier to play someone like Phoenix. Has no escape or any jumping abilities, always stuck to the ground. Always have to look out for fuel, so it's an additional point to pay attention to, which could sway you away from something more serious. Using your abilities in a bad way can get your team's health down or even get them killed. Also, if you smoke or wall off incorrectly, you only are helping out the enemy team. She has no information abilities and she cannot see anything outside of her abilities either, so every time it's either prediction or risking yourself and peeking. Alright guys, it's 3 AM now and that's all I can think of. This is pretty much all I learned over the past 2 weeks playing Viper. I would like to mention if I missed out anything or if you discovered something cool, please mention it in the comments below so I can like it and bring it up to help me and future viewers that want to play Viper. Also make sure to point out all the mistakes since I definitely made some. Again, I would like to remind you that I stream almost every day on Twitch now and it would be really dope if you could come and hang out. I'm probably going to learn Cypher next and make a video on him, and in general I would like to cover all the agents, so if you have some cool ideas or want to learn the agent together, come hang out in my stream. Also, you can AFK farm closed beta keys for Valorant since the drops are enabled on my Twitch. The link for it will be in the descriptions below. Thank you for watching. I know this was a pretty long video, but Viper has a lot to cover, way more than some other agents such as Phoenix, which will be pretty simple to cover. Alright guys, this is the end of the video. Don't forget to like or dislike and subscribe if you want to see more. See you guys on my stream or in the next episode. Bye. I'ma run it up, gon' get the guap.